What is going on, guys? Horizon here. For those of you that may not know, this past weekend saw the 16 best Collegiate Rocket League teams from across the world coming together to compete for the Collegiate Rocket League, or CRL, World Championship. For me, I had never been one to follow CRL, but with this being the first ever CRL World Championship, I found myself engrossed in the storylines that developed and the Cinderella stories that emerged throughout the weekend. That's right, I'm looking at you, Penn State and Valleyfield. Today I wanted to share my thoughts on the quality of CRL, the differences between CRL and the RLCS, and the impact that CRL has on the Rocket League scene as a whole. Before we do jump into it though, as always, if you guys are enjoying the content and you feel like making somebody's day today, please consider clicking that bright red subscribe button right down below the video. It really does help me out a lot more than you guys realize, and I really do appreciate it. Thanks so much for all the support. Let's get into it. Let me start out by saying that I think CRL is absolutely fantastic and a wonderful addition to the Rocket League scene as a whole. I'll go more in depth on why I believe this towards the end of the video. First and foremost, let's talk about quality, something this channel is not too familiar with. If you are familiar with the RLCS broadcast, you will know that there is a certain quality that fans have come to expect from production to broadcast talent. There is a level of polish that is expected for these broadcasts. In the case of CRL, the broadcast is every bit as polished as the RLCS. You can definitely see the amount of thoughts and hard work that goes into bringing a broadcast like this to our screens. In the past, we have seen some broadcasts that feel like they were thrown together last minute, without a whole lot of thought. A good example of this would be the B stream from the Fall Major of the 21-22 RLCS season. That broadcast felt rushed and unpolished, and that is not what we see with the CRL broadcasts. Combine that with some familiar broadcast talent such as Stacks and Jeeves, and some new and exciting talent for those of us that purely have watched RLCS, you have a recipe for not only a polished and professional broadcast, but an entertaining and exciting one. Well, that's great and all, but all of that is off-field production. What about the product that is put on the field? Why, thank you for that wonderful question, kind viewer. In terms of the on-field entertainment value, there is a noticeable difference between what is put on the field in the CRL and what is put on in the RLCS. But I don't think that is a bad thing. Heck, I would be disappointed if the play on the field was at the level of RLCS. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would you not want to see the highest level of gameplay? And the answer is pretty simple. Because it's college. I don't think anyone watching this video would expect to go to a college basketball game and see NBA level skill from every player. You will see players who are on the cusp of breaking into the upper echelon of players, but they aren't there yet. There are, of course, the occasional exception, where a player is playing at the college level and does have the skill to be a pro. And wouldn't you know, that is exactly what we see in the CRL. Players that do have a lot of skill in the game, but do not quite reach up to the pro level. And the rare exception of players who are in college, but do have RLCS level skill, players such as T-Gray and Lionblaze. Turns out that the sports world and the esports world have more similarities than many people would like to admit. So, we have established that the on-field product is not going to be the same level as the RLCS. But what does that mean? What can we expect to see when watching CRL that differs from what we see when watching the RLCS? I was able to hone in on 3 things that felt very different between the 2 leagues. Those being mechanics, space, and nerves. Mechanics is the easiest of the 3 to cover. As we have already discussed, CRL does not have the talent of the RLCS. There were noticeable mechanics that we see frequently in RLCS play that did not seem to have a consistent place in the average CRL match. The first one that jumped out to me for being absent was chain dashes along the walls. Now, this isn't the most critical of mechanics to be missing. Heck, a lot of pro players are still unable to execute this mechanic consistently. But when you are used to seeing it used pretty frequently in pro lobbies, thank you Atomic for using them as often as possible, it is noticeable when it is not present. Now, a mechanic that I expected to see more of that was used relatively sparingly was the flip reset. Now, don't get me wrong, the flip reset was still used to great effect in several instances across the weekend, but it was nowhere near as frequent as it is in pro lobbies. For pros, I feel that every single time they go up in the air, they're aiming to utilize some form of flip reset. And it's easy to understand why. The more unpredictable you can make yourself, the harder it is for anyone to defend you. CRL players lack the consistency to get flip resets on command, so they instead rely on more reliable mechanics, things like vanilla air dribbles, double taps, and team plays to get their goals. As time goes on, the offense of CRL will inevitably become more unpredictable, but for the time being, it will continue to be handicapped by the lack of consistency in extremely advanced mechanics. So, CRL players being inconsistent is still entertaining to watch? Yes it is. And the reason being is because it makes it feel relatable. Top pro players play near perfect Rocket League every time they step onto the field. That is not obtainable for most players. However, not having to be perfect and still having an arena to compete in is what gives CRL its charm and allows it to be more accessible for more players. Now, let's talk about space. It's an issue that plagues every Rocket League player, giving your opponent too much space. This is not a consistent issue throughout every match in CRL, but there were several occurrences where goals could have been prevented if the defense would have just driven toward the attacker and put in a challenge instead of playing reactionary. One of the biggest differences between CRL and RLCS is that RLCS players play anticipatory Rocket League. They do not wait to see what their opponent is going to do before they make their decision. CRL players do this too, but they have moments where they resort to playing reactionary, and it normally ends with them getting scored on. The last thing I would like to take some time to touch on in this section of the video is nerves. Oh boy. I have never seen nerves be more obvious than they were in this tournament. There are a couple of two-word phrases that really sum this up perfectly. Own goals and open nets. And I mean open nets in more ways than one, both giving up open nets and missing them. There are 3 prime examples of nerves that I can cite throughout this tournament. The first came in Game 5 of the upper finals of one of the groups between Oakland and Berlin. Berlin held the lead into the final seconds of the game, and as the clock hit 0 seconds...
Now 10 seconds left for the Golden Grizzlies to come up with another golden moment as Roz let one get behind him. He's got to play this downfield quickly, but more importantly in the air as Jay Wismont comes in for the rescue. J Cube locked one. Wismont's there. Roz with no time sends us to overtime.
Then this happened.
Berlin, what have you got left? And a kick off! J Cube comes up big! Where Oakland had struggled on the kickoff, they do it in OT!
Yeah, not the cleanest play from Berlin, and a clear result of their mental being shook up after giving up the tying goal. Next comes from the elimination match in groups played between Kit SC and Salford. Trailing 2-1 towards the end of Game 3 of a tied series, Matei from Kit SC is given the easiest and most open net he was going to see all weekend.
On elimination day. Oh, if Jiggy times that a little better. Oh, he gets that on the nose. Hang on a second. Matei's got it. Oh, he missed it. Oh, he beamed it. Oh, that one hurts if you're Matei.
Safe to say, things did not end well for Kit SC. The final example comes from Game 5 of the decider match played between Valleyfield and Kiel. With a 3-goal lead with just over a minute to go, he looks to be in position to take the win. But nothing could have prepared them for what was about to happen.
But already close to under a minute. You need something right now. Scoring 3 in a minute is tough enough, and Vegas didn't even believe that Potty was actually going to miss. K3 misses as well, and that's why Broken's not flying for it, because why would they?
That's an unfortunate transition right there.
They might get it.
Oh, they're going to get that one, and all right.
They're happy to play 4 minutes on the blue side of the field and make it work.
Ooh.
Jump towards the net, nice save, and that one's poked again into the middle. Vegas trying to get it. He's going to be, what a save! They come out of the corner, huge bailout for Keel. That might just be it. Thrown and broken up one more time. Valleyfield could not break him down. Dumped into the middle again. They win 12 seconds.
If there's ever a time to show up for NA, it's Valleyfield right here, right now, to not get knocked out of the elimination rounds. 10 seconds, Vegas should make the shot! No way! No way!
You gotta be kidding me!
Coming out from Tokyo, might allow Broken to get a bit of a transition here, taking it up and around the corner. Potty tries to turn it away. Tokyo's right behind him, and that's gonna be it! The tie is broken, and he moves on!
All of these situations seem to come down to the mental game being shaken. Whether it be nerves or tilt, these players were not performing at the standard of performance I am sure they have set for themselves, and it cost them all dearly. Now, compare this with the world of RLCS, and the top teams rarely struggle with the same kind of issues. Sure, you might have some missed shots, but that can normally be attributed to them needing to place the ball perfectly. Pros are certainly not immune to mistakes like these. We have seen some absolutely ridiculous things in the past, but they do not happen with the alarming regularity that they did in CRL this past weekend. And all of those mistakes I listed still do not include the mass number of own goals that were seen throughout the weekend. The nerves were definitely on full display for pretty much everyone involved. This doesn't come as a surprise either, as a lot of these players don't have RLCS, let alone LAN experience. So it is understandable that the nerves were present, but oh my, did they make appearances way more often than anyone would have liked. So with all of that said, what do I really think about CRL? I absolutely love it, and there are a ton of reasons for that. I won't go into detail on every single reason, as we would be here for way longer than any of us want to be. If I had to pick 2 things that make CRL so great, I would say storylines and player passion. Let's begin with storylines. One of the biggest issues a lot of people have with RLCS is that the rosters turn over incredibly quickly. You can be a fan of a team and how they play for as little as 6 weeks, and they could already be making a roster change if things don't work out the way they wanted. It's annoying for sure, but I can't say I blame them. In a league that is as volatile as the RLCS, it is important to get yourself a roster with the best players you can find. Once they start winning, only then do you keep them together. It can be very difficult to become fans of the orgs for that reason. The team may not be the same in 6 weeks. Now compare that with the CRL. These teams are only able to have players who attend their universities, so if something isn't working, there is not an endless pool of talent to draw from. And looking over the CRL rules for spring of 2022, rosters may consist of a maximum of 5 players and a coach or manager. This means that once the season starts, they are only able to use a combination of those 5 players for the next 5 months, as the league started at the end of January and came to an end at the beginning of June with the World Championship. This means that fans are able to follow a team for a much longer period of time. Not to mention that as years go by, it is highly likely that the core of the team will stay more or less the same until players graduate. That is a big deal for fans who want to follow a core team. Additionally, since schools are never going to be dropping one roster to pick up another, it allows the teams to have long-lasting storylines year after year. The last thing I want to touch on for this video is player passion. Obviously, everyone who plays Rocket League competitively has a passion for the game. But outside of that, what do the players take pride in competing for? For pro players, it is for personal financial gain. The better you do and the longer you compete, the more money you make. For pros that are under contract with an org, they are also playing for the benefit of that org. The question I have is, how much do the players really care about playing for the org? Sure, they may like the people who work for the org and appreciate the financial support that they get from them, but at the end of the day, are any pros actually playing for the org? Something tells me that they appreciate the org, but they are out there competing for the good of themselves and their teammates. Now, let's compare that to CRL. These guys aren't playing for big money, at least not compared to the pro scene. The winners of the CRL World Championship, Northwood, walked away with $20,000 out of a $75,000 prize pool. Sure, that's nothing to scoff at, but it's not insane. So they're not playing for as much money as the pros. So what else are they playing for? The answer? Their school. Unlike organizations, colleges and universities serve as a home away from home for 4 years. That is a long time to develop relationships and connections with people all over campus and the campus itself. You inevitably see the people you play alongside every day. Shoot, you may even live with them, and people think boot camp buffs are strong. Try dorm room buffs. Speaking from experience, the school becomes a part of your identity, a part of who you are. This means that when given the chance to represent your school, your home, you do it with pride and a desire to give it everything you can. That is what makes CRL so special, and will make CRL so special for years to come. If you haven't watched any CRL, I would highly recommend taking a peek at the Kiel vs Valleyfield match, as well as the Valleyfield vs Northwood match. Easily my 2 favorite matches of the weekend. So thank you everybody so much for watching, as I greatly appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications. If you guys have any video ideas, suggestions, anything like that, go ahead and throw those down in the comments below. As always, I look forward to checking out. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. See you later, guys.